Welcome everybody to our webinar today. We're going to be talking about 6 messaging psychology hacks to close prospects faster. We've got some really great guests today in Max Altschuler, the CEO of SalesHacker.com, and one of our own, Gabe Larsen, our Director of Consulting here at Inside Sales. While we have everybody log on, we're going to give everybody a minute here. And we're going to show a little quick video clip as everybody gets logged on, and then we will start the webcast. So enjoy this.
We all share a universal need to progress and realize our potential. And we believe that science is the key to unlocking that potential. Science takes you from the playground to the pros. And in our industry, we call this sales acceleration. Sales acceleration is not just a piece of software, it's a system, it's a platform, so you can reach the right customers in the right way at the right time. We understand your need to progress, and we believe that science is the key to measure, anticipate, and accelerate.
Great. Well, hopefully we've had a little bit of time here to let people get logged in and settled. I just want to thank everybody for joining us live. This is a live broadcast, and so we appreciate your attendance. I just want to go over a few quick points of interest. Our webinar will last about an hour. We want you guys to get used to using the Q&A box, so if you want to give us a shout out right now in your Q&A box, maybe let us know where you're joining us from, and you can get used to using that Q&A, as we will have some interactivity during the webinar today. We'd invite you to write down some action items, take some notes, and make sure that you can apply what we're talking about today. And we also wanted to let everybody know that that this is being recorded, and we'll let you know how to access the recording in the end. One other thing to note is if you ever have any audio or video issues, just make sure you hit the refresh button, and it should get the audio and video working again. So I'm going to turn it over now to Max to do a little self-intro. Max, here's a few questions that you can choose from up on the slides if you want to give us a little self-intro. I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on today, and I'll kick it off with a fun fact. So I've been to about 75 countries, started backpacking in college, and it's been a blast. Some were a lot crazier than others. Obviously, going to some of the third world countries. I've backpacked through all of them and really spent as little money as possible. So it's been a wild ride, and kind of prepared me a lot more than I ever thought it would for my career. So always been a little bit of an entrepreneur and a sales guy, and right now I'm the CEO of Sales Hacker. We have a publication for all things B2B sales. And then our flagship conference, Sales Stack, is in November. So it's 1,000+ salespeople all getting together to talk about sales technology and making their sales processes more efficient through technology and, the modern sales processes of, 2015. We also run the SaaStr Annual, which is a conference for software tech founders, which is a 3-day event in February. I also built the supply side, aka sales side, of a $600 million company called Udemy. It's an online education marketplace, and I was the first sales hire in 2011. And then I, helped numerous companies through advisory and investment, software companies innovate and build out their sales processes usually from the ground up. So now I help everyone through just basically the Sales Hacker community. We have we have a LinkedIn community called the Sales Hacker community. We have our blog. We have local meetups, workshops that we do, and then our big conferences. And just want to kind of facilitate the right introductions and help people through education as much as we possibly can, and spread the spread the word about all the new stuff that's going on in sales these days, because it's growing more rapidly than ever before.
Fantastic. All right, so Max, I'm going to jump in and do mine. This is Gabe Larsen. I'm glad I could join Max. I think this is going to be awesome. I'll go through my quick intro, and then we'll jump into some fun. So fun fact about myself, you can ask me later. You could type me a question. I'll try to answer you. But I almost died golfing. I don't know if many people can say that, but I unfortunately can. My role right now, I'm at InsideSales.com. I run what we call our momentum strategy team. What that does is Inside Sales does focus on sales acceleration technology, but boy, have we learned over the past decade or so that you got to be thinking about people, systems, and processes together. And so I help our clients make sure that they create an environment where our technology can be successful, and have therefore done a lot of consulting with prospects and clients. My experience, had an interesting road, did investment banking at Goldman Sachs for a while, did some technical consulting at Accenture, lived overseas for about 5 years working with a company called Gallup, but I'm glad to be in the tech space and focusing back on sales. So would love it. I've got a couple ebooks. If you want to grab those, you'll see that content in your screen. But with that, I want to see if we can't jump on in here and get to the good stuff. I'm seeing some of these questions. Matt's asking if it was a golf cart or a golf ball, and it was neither. Matt, I'll have to actually fill you in a little bit more later on what and how I almost died golfing. So
I'm going to go with lightning.
Yeah, right. Actually, I'll fill you in. I actually almost drowned, to be honest. I almost drowned. But I'll give more details to those who want to know. So, Mike, you want to do this part real quick, this thumbs up part?
Yeah, we're just checking in to see if everybody's ready. Give us a thumbs up if you are, and then we'll let Gabe take it away.
Good. Okay, so I'm going to be looking at the kind of the chat screen, so please do, jump in as needed or jump in if you have questions, but let's rock and roll. So as a quick introduction here, I think we all know the sales funnel. Top to bottom, you got good, you got bad, you got the ugly. The question is, how do we make sure we tighten that sales funnel as tight as possible? Because wherever you've got sales, you've got people falling out of the funnel. And so we wanted to focus on two areas today. One is top funnel, some of the psychology hacks that we can potentially tackle. And then number two, bottom of funnel, how can we try to hack and dive into that area of the sales funnel? So I'm going to work with Max. We're going to go through about 6 of them. And again, please jump in with questions or comments as you see fit. So first part, let's talk top of funnel, prospecting. Kind of an interesting stat here when it comes to very, very top of the funnel. So list building. There's a stat out there, Max, that says about 20% of time is spent building lists. That comes from CSO. I believe another one from Sirius says 68% of reps' time is spent researching and not calling. I mean, what's going on here? What do we need to be thinking about if we're going to be building lists more effectively when it comes to prospecting?
Yeah, so those are great stats because it's true. This is the beginning of where your messaging starts. So if you're not reaching out to the right person, it doesn't matter what message you're going to hit them with. You're probably not going to have a high chance of success. So right person, right time, right message, and you're setting yourself up for a much higher chance of success. So if you spend a good chunk of your time going out and finding, one, the right person, and two, the necessary information you need to contact that person in a thoughtful way, then you're knocking those two first things out right off the bat. Right person, right time, right message. So you're looking to find on the open internet, all right, who's that potential buyer at that potential company that's going to be your low-hanging fruit. So we call that your ideal customer profile, right? So you're looking for, maybe you look through your past database and you see that when you've sold to a Fortune 500 company, the title you want is VP of Sales Operations. So maybe when you go to target another Fortune 500 company you reach out to the VP of Sales Operations at that company because you know at companies of the similar size, that's the title that you're going after. So if you can start building lists of the right people, that's the first start. So you want to really drill down on, who you're targeting, who you're going after, what the title is, what the type of company is, and there's a lot of different things, you can do to find that. You can look at your competitors and what type of companies are using your competitors. You could look back into your, your company database and basically break that down, segment that by company size or industry of what, maybe at, if you're selling into enterprise companies in agriculture, maybe understanding what title you've dealt with at a closed company in the past. Whatever you dealt with at a closed company, you might want to deal with at companies that you're prospecting into. So, buy versus build. You can always go out and buy lists, but if you build them, you'll be able to target them a lot more precisely. And so data is cheaper, more accessible, and more actionable than it ever has been in the past.
Yeah.
You can go out there and really find all this, as much information as you possibly can. We'll get into social, we'll get into all these other ways, but there are triggers everywhere. There are, there's information, not even just on LinkedIn and Twitter, but in blog posts. I mean, you could look at a blog post from, a PR article from Dell, and it says that Dell plans to spend, in excess of $200 million on digital advertising this year, says VP of Digital Advertising, blah, blah, blah. And now you know who to reach out to and how much money they're spending. And when you look at, the classic ways of setting that up, so, you used to have to get on the phone and go through BANT and ONM, so, budget, authority, timing, need. You can actually find all of those things on the open internet now. You can find out if they have the budget. You can find out who the authority is. You can find out if the timing's right. You can find out if they have a need. That article, that press release from Dell just told you everything you need to know. So when you do get on the phone with that person, you actually don't have to spend as much time qualifying them because they're already pre-qualified. So this is the first piece, right person, right time, and then right message.
Yeah, so one of the questions that came through was about right time, Max. So, and I think we're going to get into that in just a minute, but it sounds like we're talking about right time is the time that's right for them. And I'm going to hold off. I think we'll dive into that here in just a few minutes. But what do you say to the question? I feel like I get asked this a lot. It's like people are looking for that, the golden ticket where I can just come in and say, hey, where's the very best list, that I can buy? Is it Zoom? Is it data? And I'm hearing you kind of leaning away from that. I'm hearing you kind of say more, look, you got to take ownership of this, man. You want to win. You got to build it yourself, and you become kind of the list builder. Am I right in that?
Yeah, I think if you're going to use ZoomInfo or Data.com or things like that where you buy a full list, you just need to be really precise about what your ideal customer profile looks like, and either have a really general or broad ideal customer profile that you can use the entire list on, or know that some of that list is not going to be useful for you. And you don't want to waste your time on people who are not potential buyers, who are not, haven't checked off kind of the boxes that you're looking to check off. So, there's a lot of technology out there now that'll help you build lists. Obviously LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a great way to go out there and prospect and find the right people. There are plenty of different pieces of software that you can go in and actually, find ways to contact those people other than LinkedIn InMail. Datanize is another great product that'll help you kind of figure out who's using what technology. So if you're selling, if people who use Marketo and email are potential, customers of yours, Datanize can help you find that. There are a lot of companies out there, and in my book, Hacking Sales, I think I list probably like 150 different tools, but on saleshacker.com, and you can ping me at Twitter if you want more, but I can go, deeper in depth into all the different tools that are out there.
Yeah, so one question that came through, Max, along these same lines is, you can certainly find a lot of information out there, and you mentioned BANT or ONM, a way to qualify prospects even before you reach out to them. When it comes to budget, is there have you found a tool or a way to find budget more effectively, or is that something that you do typically find out through that more qualification process via the phone?
There are certain things that you can kind of derive from information that you find on the internet. So you can see, there was a press release that came out that was very quiet. And like, if you don't actually do the research or maybe even set up alerts for these type of things, you'd never know. But Salesforce signed a deal with Oracle for, I think it was a couple billion over 10 years to use their databases. So there's an article right there that tells you that, two companies are doing a deal involving databases that involves lots of money. So you can maybe derive some information from that press release where maybe one of those companies has budget for something now because that deal was done. So again, like, you can find information from that Dell article. That Dell article is a real article, by the way. It's out there, so go find it. It's not in digital marketing. It's in social media. But there are a lot of different things like that where you can derive, okay, they have budget for this now. Also, any kind of funding announcements or acquisitions. If Amazon buys a company in a certain space, if a company raises a $60 million Series D, there are a lot of different things that you can, say this company just made this action. They probably have budget for X now. Is it an exact science? No, you're still going to have to do a little fishing on the call. But I think in every case you're going to have to do that. Coming as close as possible, though, and with being able to pre-qualify people gets you a lot closer than you would have been if you hadn't done this research, and could really significantly speed up the deal cycle.
Got it. No, love it. And we got it. I mean, there are a couple tools, Brian. Appreciate you throwing that one out. Ranking, can sometimes get you a little closer to numbers. I've seen in Inside View, you can get some numbers, whether that's annual numbers or actual budgets that are going on. So I think those are a couple of good ways to play around with that. So good, Max. So let's take that as point one. So think through your list building strategy and structure and how you best do that. Okay, point number two. Let's check this one out. So we're going to go to Twitter. We're going to hit social for just a minute. It's, social is one of those things that it rubs me the wrong way sometimes. Sometimes I maybe it just depends on kind of how I'm feeling, but it's a buzzword sometimes. Sometimes I see companies do great with it. Other times I'm really seeing them bomb with it. There's a stat out there that says 72% of salespeople using social as part of their sales process are outperforming their sales peers. When it comes to Twitter, and we'll jump into LinkedIn in just a minute, how does that stat apply to Twitter? What should be the goal of Twitter for salespeople who want to sell more?
Yeah, the goal of Twitter is really to build the rapport. It's another way to kind of, I like to say, get in the friend zone. And so when you're selling to someone, you want to get in, and as fast as possible, you want to find a way for them to take their guard down, uncross their arms, so to speak. So, what are the different ways that you can go in and get this done as fast as possible? And Twitter is a great way, if they're on there, to really gauge, what that person's about. That's where they're really sharing stuff. I think Facebook I think it's a little too personal, but I think Twitter is the best place that you can actually go out and find out, okay, hey, this person is a diehard Patriots fan and they're from Boston. And you can use that information, later when reaching out. You can find out if somebody's bro, like they're very, casual, and they're, they check into a bar or something like that and watch the football game on Sundays, or if they're maybe a little more rigid and they're, tweeting about, political stuff, and they're not as vocal on Twitter as maybe the next person. And then you can use that in how you approach them and how you share content with them and how you kind of engage with that person. So I think it really goes a long way into kind of building the rapport with someone, especially if, you can use certain triggers you find on Twitter to then, inject into your messaging, whether that's messaging through Twitter, through email, through LinkedIn, or any other way that you're reaching out. For example, if somebody is, if you see a prospect on LinkedIn, this is the person you want to target, they're from Boston, you go on their Twitter, they're like, tweeting about how the Patriots won the Super Bowl, maybe this was like in February or something like that. They're pretty pumped on it, and you reach out with a perfectly timed message telling them congrats on their Super Bowl win and maybe commenting on Tom Brady or something like that. You get a much higher chance of this person responding to your sales email. It's pretty much a cold email, but you did your research. You figured out what makes this person tick, what makes this person move, what this person's pretty much super happy about at that moment, and you're hitting on that.
But Max, how do you find that line, right? You don't want to, sometimes people are like, Twitter is stalking, or it's, how do you do that in a professional way so that you are getting the information, you're letting them know that, there's maybe a mutual interest here? I feel like I'm talking about dating.
Yeah. That's the funny thing. It's like, if you don't have that kind of social awareness, you probably shouldn't be in sales in the first place. But, to answer the question, there's obviously things that are off limits. Like, don't talk about somebody's children. Don't talk, I wouldn't even talk about somebody's family really, but sports is a great place to start. Things that are just public or in the news or music and things like that. If a person just went to a concert, just like, hey, I follow you on Twitter, big fan of XYZ. By the way, saw you went to this concert the other night. I love them too, blah, blah, blah. You can kind of say that kind of stuff. Like you can interact with them in that way. And I don't think that's stalking. And you know what? Like if they think you're stalking them on Twitter, it's a public space. It's a public forum. Their tweets are public. Like I'm doing my research. I'm trying to, have a conversation with you. I don't think I've ever seen anyone respond to a rep that's like, hey, you're stalking me, when it's been something through, Twitter. So, again, like I said, Facebook, Instagram, I'm not touching that, but Twitter and LinkedIn are definitely open season.
Yeah, well, I'd love to see if people in the audience, if you've had a great stalker story on one of the social media sites, please share. Let's see if we can't get the worst one out there. Honestly, I've typically found, like you said, Max, that most people, it's pretty decent. They'll hit me up about my alumni or something that's a little more public, and I feel like it is a great rapport building tool. So you've got a couple best practices or maybe do's and don'ts on interacting on Twitter. You've got here kind of the FRFR, the rule of 7. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so you want to stay on people's radar. The rule of 7 is an old advertising rule. So effective frequency is what it's also called. So it takes a person 7 times plus or minus 2 to be able to recall your name or logo. So in advertising, it would be like, okay, so they'll show you the Pepsi logo 7 times, in 7 different ways, and then they'll show, maybe a day later they'll show you half of the Pepsi logo, and you should be able to recognize that is the Pepsi logo by only seeing a portion of it. And so, on Twitter and in general, you want to stay on people's radar as much as you possibly can. So you look at your Twitter and you have a profile picture on there of yourself. You have a Twitter handle that hopefully has your name in it, not in the handle part, but when you look at your Twitter profile, it has your name next to it. And so if you're favoriting and retweeting and following and responding to people on Twitter, it's just one way to kind of stay on people's radar and get your name and an image out there. And you're kind of building that 7 times. I think if you go actually further than 7 times, it can't hurt. But 7 times is probably the first time where it really starts to seep in. And so if you're sitting on somebody's timeline and they're in their notifications on Twitter and you're favoriting their tweet and you're retweeting things, you're responding to certain things that they send out there, obviously following them, and then that's part of your bigger cadence. So you're also connecting with them on LinkedIn and mailing them and emailing them. They're going to see your name coming up, quite often. And again, if you have the right person at the right time, this is just a really great way to, all right, start building that rapport, start, getting on their radar, and really, like, maybe they're not paying attention to you. Maybe you're just another follower. But subliminally, they're seeing your image and they're seeing your name pop up over and over again. And there are a couple companies that I see that do this pretty well, that have their reps doing this. And it's interesting. I don't think that it was ever trained to these reps about, like, the rule of 7, but definitely staying on people's radar and getting on in front of them.
Yeah, interesting. No, I like it. So when we think about killer tools that you can use for Twitter, I'd love to hear from the audience as well. What are your favorite tools that you've used to help you do social selling better? But maybe you could give us a couple, Max, that you've found to be more effective than others.
Yeah, so I use Buffer, Insight Pool, and Follower Wonk is another really good one. Socedo is a company out of Seattle that does some interesting stuff as well with, like, automated social for sales reps. But Follower Wonk is great. It allows you to kind of vet through and see who your highest rated followers are, and then you can actually search people's Twitter bios to find new followers. Insight Pool we use is awesome also. And then if you guys want to follow someone that does it really well, the Sasanova is his Twitter handle. I think it's Sasanova, Jack Kosakowski. He's one of the top reps at Acton. I think he's their number 1 rep, and he really just kills it, and he attributes a lot of it to how he does his stuff on connecting Twitter and LinkedIn. So I don't know about all the social hype type stuff, the hype train, but this is actionable tactical stuff that you can use every day that isn't too time consuming, that you can actually, like, do and will show results.
Awesome. A couple that came in from the group, we got hash tracking is a great one. Rifle. You may have mentioned BuzzSumo. You mentioned Follower Wonk. So yeah, we got a couple good from the audience, and I do think, having used a couple of these tools, I love TweetDeck. I love Buffer. I think those are things that you can start putting right into play and start utilizing to help you get a little more social selling eyes. So, all right, let's jump on to the next thing. We'll go through this a little bit quicker because we kind of hit social with Twitter. But again, let's, if you take a step back, here's an interesting stat for you, Max. They say, this one comes from Jeff at Triblio. He says 93% of sales executives that they surveyed haven't received any formal training on social selling. So in one part, we're talking about how great social can be and what it can do. And then another part, you've got people saying sales reps have no clue about social. How would you respond to, is that your experience? Are people not knowing how to do a lot of social stuff, or is your experience otherwise?
Yeah, I think people just don't know how to do it. I think it's something that's still relatively new, but people are figuring it out. I don't think there's a playbook, so to speak, or some kind of generic sequence that people go through. But I think that's true for sales in general right now. There's so much enhancement and acceleration happening right now that we see a lot in our groups. Hey, how do you do a lot of the basic stuff that you used to do, but using a lot of the new, like, software and tools? And so, social is just another category within that tool belt. And Twitter and LinkedIn are the tools.
And I think
for us,
if people, sorry, I was going to say, if people think, this can be, I just got a comment here about, sometimes I think these things can be counterproductive, and I'm with you. I do think that if you're not careful and you don't help your reps structure their day, they get into that real social selling and all they're doing is goofing around on social sites. I've found it best to try to, really get strategic and say, hey, look, for, Tuesdays at 2:00, that's going to be our social selling hour. Every day at 2:00 is our social hour. Hey, Monday's profile update day, or Tuesday's, connection day. If you can help guide them and put some rails around it, I definitely think people could be more effective. So I can't argue with that comment. Another thing I really
I'd say
like,
organization.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, I'd say organization is like basically one of the best characteristics you could have as a salesperson. And so, being able to separate that time to go through this daily, go through this kind of cycle, and then make it part of your cadence. There are sales reps who are smooth talkers. There are sales reps who understand the numbers, but organization is, a key skill for sales that, obviously can't be missed. I mean, and it goes further than just squaring away time to make sure this is done. Obviously, keeping, Salesforce clean and up to date and all that kind of stuff go along with it. But, it's crucial and can't be taught that well.
Yeah, no, and sometimes you gotta help reps do it. I really liked. I don't know if people out there have heard of Steve Richards and Foresight. They had a little acronym or play they ran called the 3x3, where reps said, hey, look, rather than doing analysis by paralysis, you find 3 great things in 3 minutes, and then you move on. You actually kind of start prospecting rather than just kind of twiddling your thumbs. So when you're on LinkedIn, Max, and you're thinking about building rapport, what are some of the things you look for, fairly quickly to see if you can't identify in order to reach out and build that rapport with your prospect?
Yeah, so I'm looking for, as many triggers as I can find. And like you mentioned before when we were on Twitter, alumni networks. Everybody is connected, within, I think it's the Kevin Bacon effect is on here, but it's 6 degrees of separation, basically. So everybody's connected kind of in some way through at least, a few different connections. And so finding these triggers that are linked in and being able to use those to your advantage, it just goes so much further than just reaching out to someone cold. So if you, or with no information. So if you're saying, I have a rep doing this now and he's great at it, he'll find, a connection to his alumni network, and then he'll reach out to people through them to get an introduction to the other person. And this person, through his alumni network, he doesn't know. All they have in common is that they went to the same university. And it's working. It works really well because there's some level of trust in there. It's not cold. It's like you have this thing in common, and this thing is like a strong bond. Most people associate very closely to like where they went to school or their hometown, or even where they currently live. So you can use things like that. Another trigger would be, job changes. So one of the best ways to get in somewhere is when someone new gets hired, and especially if you know the person that just got hired at a new company, and you can congratulate them on getting the new job, and then on top of that, go in and see if they're ready to buy something or how can we partner soon. New people buy new things. That's what happens. That's what happens at companies.
Yeah.
So that job change notification and being alert on that. That's your best friend as a sales rep on LinkedIn. And then, again, LinkedIn should be part of your cadence. All these things are only good if they're done, again, or in an organized manner as part of the bigger cadence, which I'm sure we'll go into here in a second.
Yeah, so let's jump into a couple of those things, Max. So one is that we got a question on was just around managing some of those triggers. I mean, how do you track? I mean, do I got to be monitoring 50 social things at once in order to track some of these triggers? Or how can I manage some of these triggers that you talked about, like job change, et cetera? Is there a way that you recommend doing that?
Yeah, you can set up, alerts through LinkedIn, actually. There's a lot of stuff you can do. On the top right corner, usually on your home screen in LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of the different jobs, the people who've lasted a year at a current job or who have changed jobs. I mean, any of those things that are popping up in the right-hand corner up there are triggers. There's, Google alerts that you can set up for certain things like that. You can have, I go as far as I have a virtual assistant in the Philippines that works for us full time, and she does a lot of stuff on us on LinkedIn. We actually use a tool called Autopilot for LinkedIn as well, and that goes out and views profiles of targets, potential targets, for like attending, our events, for example. So if we want VPs of sales from companies that have over 10,000 employees, we have a piece of software that actually goes and views the profiles of those VPs of sales. And what that does is, again, stay on their radar. Now they saw my face pop up. They go to who viewed your profile, and they see that, then they go and view your profile, and now you can have a conversation with them. Hey, I see you viewed my profile, blah, blah, blah. What are they going to say back? Oh, yeah, well, you viewed mine first. Like, that's a great conversation opener right there. So, that's something that works really well for us.
Reminds me of being in elementary school. It's like for Valentine's Day, you put one of those candy hearts, and the girl you like, she comes back, she puts the candy heart. Next thing you know, you're having fun. I guess that's what sales is, right? It's like dating. So that was one piece that came out, and you mentioned content, not content so much, but more cadence, and I wanted to just touch on that. You put an example in here. I like the holistic nature of, and you touched on that, of thinking through, it's not just LinkedIn, it's not just email, it's kind of more of a holistic view. I had a question here that said, what is a great way to reach out, like a starting message on LinkedIn? Because you're going to connect with somebody maybe, but what do you put in that message so that you don't look, like a rookie, basically? So maybe you could handle that question and then talk about the cadence around that.
Yeah, if you're connecting with like an executive at another company, you can, again, you're doing your research. So saying, hey, I saw you on X, wanted to connect, or hope we can connect over XYZ, like a shared common interest. Just, again, do your research before you just click the connect button. And then if you're going to send a note on it, it's better to just send a note than say, the generic thing that's there. But if you don't have anything to say, then it's better than nothing. Again, I would do a little extra research and see if you can, put something in there. But it's better than nothing. Then, I wouldn't go like willy-nilly and just start connecting with people all over the place and just clicking the button. I'd make sure you have something valuable to connect on and start the relationship off right. But I'd say getting on the radar and getting your image there and like them seeing your name is much better than, the opposite.
No, perfect. And then just touch on cadence if you can for a minute, Max. What's kind of the concept there? You mentioned it earlier, but give me one step deeper.
Yes. Again, this has to, you're doing all this stuff on Twitter, you're doing all this stuff on LinkedIn, you're coming up with the right information, the right message. It's all got to be part of a much larger organized, outreach strategy. And so your cadence is kind of like, okay, you have a new contact or new account. How are you going out and reaching out to them? And I like to think that there's really like no cap on a cadence until somebody just really gives you the hard no. Some people do this for 7 touches. Some people do it for 9. Some people do it for less. I think, HubSpot had a report that after 9, you're past the point of diminishing returns. I think most, legit sales trainers will tell you to keep going until they tell you no. So you're looking at, an example cadence here in the morning, you're on social and you send an email and you're really on their radar. In the afternoon, you do one more quick thing and then you give them a phone call. Then, 2 days later, you go through the kind of routine again. And this is really up to you. If you Google sales cadence, you'll find a lot of different articles. We have some on Sales Hacker. There's no silver bullet, but this is something that could be like tested and optimized for your company, and you can figure out what's working best for you. And so you'll know should you send an email and then do a phone call the second you send the email? Should you send an email and an email at the same time? Like what works best? If you do enough of this, and you should because you have enough leads if you're in a real business, to figure out what's working and what's not, and you're kind of A/B testing it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, we found, we did a study over about a 2-week time frame, and I liked how you put it. There's a little bit of science to it, but there's a lot of art in A/B testing. So if you get, for example, someone that comes to you like a new inbound lead, the more you can kind of hit them up front the first few days, the better chance you have of getting them because, they're going to start to lose, I think, interest and remember who you are. But, playing around with 6 to 10 phone calls, 3 emails, 3 voice messages. We actually found, interestingly, 3 voice messages over a 2-week time frame with one of the studies we ran was a kind of an optimal number for our internal team. So like the concept that there's some science behind it, but there is some art, and you need to play around and figure out what works for you. So let's jump on to kind of a little further down the funnel. and we talked about, building a list. We talked about maybe getting some information. Now we're going to move kind of into email outreach and then some of the potential follow-up and phone conversations. When it comes to email, what is kind of the formula you recommend in order to keep it? I mean, you've got a couple points on this. What makes it successful? There's a lot of marketers out there who want to make emails fancy and put all this copy in and all these pictures. How are you finding open rates to be most effective? What's kind of your strategy there?
Yeah, I mean, I see it all too often, these really 3-paragraph, 10-sentence or more, emails. And it's that's not going to work. You have to keep it way shorter than that. It's got to be concise. It's, people, what I tell people to do is write the email and then look at it and cut out everything that doesn't need to be in there, and then do it one more time. 3 times will really wash it down to what it should be. But you got to keep it short. You got to keep it simple. What is it? KISS. Keep it simple, stupid, is the expression. Right. It's crazy how convoluted some of these emails get, and then they start using business acronyms and things like that. They start using big words. If you're going to use the word, utilize, just use the word use. Mm-hmm. You don't need to make people think more than they do. You actually the more you simplify it, the more you'll actually get the person to process the message instead of reading through the email trying to make sense of it. So, people get a little too crazy with the way they reach out these days. And if you do your research, you can actually reach out in a personalized manner at scale. And so what I mean by this is if you're building those lists that we were talking about before and you want to send an email, you want to send a personalized email, but you want to send it to 50 people at once, you don't need to spam them with one generic email that's not going to make sense to them. But you can find a common denominator on the list that you built. And so what you'll want to do is you'll want to find a group of people on the list that you built with the most things in common. So maybe you built a list of 10,000 people, and on that list are 50 people with the same title, the same location, and the same industry. When you go to send an email to those 50 people, you can actually create one super personalized email that has, a lot of information that's tailored to those specific things. And because they're all in those different areas, you can actually create a more personalized email while still mailing 50 different people. I think what you want to do to take it a step further is if you use a product you have iHance, there's a lot of products out there that help you fill in these templates. You can actually fill in the templates for those 50 people and then go one by one and put in the first line of that email the personalized thing that you pulled from the research you did before. So you're actually sending more emails faster, you're accelerating the way that you're doing the process, but you're still making them hyper-personalized. So it's just a much more efficient and effective way of reaching out to these people other than, writing one by one emails or basically spamming people with the same, stupid copy that's way too long and, people are not going to read. And again, it's not personalized to them, so they don't care,
Right. I mean, the long emails, I think that's gone. I think even as you look at, subject lines, we're finding that, shorter the better there, almost like Twitter. You're looking at 40-ish characters. But, the technology, we have that product from iHance. We now have rebranded it, called it Vision. But the data you can pull, I mean, some of these tools basically allow you to send an email, and then it optimizes when it actually should be sent based on customer preferences, buying behavior, opening behavior, so that you can maximize your ability to get open rates. So if you try to personalize it and optimize it around the simplicity, man, some of these fun technologies I think can then help you build the system around it, make sure you're actually getting people to open it when they should open it. So quick question for the audience. There's a couple of studies out there around optimal times to send emails and optimal days. What do you think? Quick question. What is the best times to send emails if you're focusing on open rates? And what are some of the better days to send emails if you want to get people to actually open or respond? I'm going to pop open the chat. We're getting a couple different things here. Monday, Tuesday. I'm getting a little bit of everything. So a lot of the data out there, you guys, is saying earlier mornings, 6 to 8 a.m. business time, and then later afternoons, almost to 8 p.m., are looking to be your very best time to actually shoot emails out, because that's when people are opening most. And then interestingly enough, this one's a little newer. A lot of people are saying Sunday is becoming a great day to actually have people read emails. I don't know about you, Max, but that one really resonated with me. I'm definitely, don't tell my wife, but I'm totally a Sunday. Yeah, Chris, you got it. Chris Roll. Sunday. I think he's the only one who put Sunday out there. Your thoughts on Sunday? Are you a Sunday email open or no?
I'm a Sunday guy also. Yeah, most Sundays I'm opening emails. Later at night on Sundays, I'm going through it, getting ready for the week. I think the higher up in a company you're reaching out to too, you'll find more people are kind of preparing for their week. They're more structured. If they're managers, that's kind of how you got to prepare for a week. So Sunday's not a bad, sending an email out on Sunday is not a bad way to do it. And I don't think it's like an inconvenient thing either. I don't think it's like one of those things, I don't want to interrupt somebody on their Sunday. I mean, it's email. Yeah, they can get back to you whenever they want. So,
proof's in the pudding. Proof's in the pudding, I guess, right? Test it out.
Yeah. We have share content on a lot of these different slides as well. And it's kind of a trend. No matter how you're reaching out to someone, if you're looking to build a rapport or prospect into their company, it's one of the most important things you can do is just keep providing value for the person. I think it's, Gary Vaynerchuk is, one of the famous entrepreneurs, has a book out that's called, Jab, Jab, Right Hook or something like that. And it's provide value, ask. And you have to do that through, you're doing the research on this person, you're building a rapport, keep providing value through sharing good content, however you can, or sharing relevant content, because that's really what's going to get you into this person's like front of mind.
Following up with people and you're not able to reach them, you mentioned both humor and extending a challenge. We put one kind of humorous email that one of our sales reps had used. You see here, I don't have time to see any crazy salesman. I have to battle to fight. And he, honest to goodness, got an immediate response back from a client who hadn't responded to him in about a month. Any quick examples on humorous emails or on that challenge email that you found to be successful?
Yeah, so that was a great image that you just shared. I mean, that's a perfect example. That's a perfect way to use it. So something light and something that'll get somebody to kind of act differently. I think a lot of people, if you Google like alligator sales email, there's an email that floats around there. It's like eaten by an alligator is the subject line. And I think the copy is, hey, just wanted to see if you got eaten by an alligator and you need help. Respond A, if you never want to hear from me again. B, if you want me to follow up in 6 months. C, if, you've been actually eaten by an alligator or something and you need me to call for help. And that gets a response. That gets, I guess your job as a sales rep is to get that response. A no is the second best answer. Yes is obviously best, but no response, just kind of like being in this zombie mode and wasting your time prospecting into somebody that is going to be a no regardless and just hasn't told you so, that's the worst case scenario. So using humor to get kind of that answer. People have been doing it and doing it well. It's a little overused, the alligator one, or there's another frozen one. There's a lot of different ones. I'd say be creative and go your own route. And as far as extending a challenge goes, I mean, we used to do this all the time at Udemy. If somebody had told us no, even after the no, or, had some maybe kind of like a negative reaction, but it wasn't a no, but it was like a, I don't think this is for me type thing. We'd usually bring up two other people, maybe competitors or even colleagues that were maybe higher than them or like a larger entity than them, larger organization, and say, hey, these people are using us. I kind of thought you were on their level, so you'd be interested. Sorry if I bothered you. And it's like almost challenging them to be like, oh, well, okay, or, something along the lines of, oh, well, if they're having success on here, but you have the best product in the market, I can only imagine how well you do, right? So, just like either stroking their competitive nature, or in some cases like ego with their competitive nature, could get them to kind of move in a follow-up situation, especially when, again, like you almost want the no. If it's not going to be a yes, you kind of want to get there as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Get the answer.
Yeah, we've got this seemed to strike a chord with a few people out there. I've got a couple of comments. I like, Scott, what you're saying. Are we bordering on immaturity, or could this be offensive? If you get, you walk. I think you got to be walking a fine line here. Again, A/B testing sometimes is the way to go, but the problem, Scott, I think we're finding is that just by doing the same old stuff, you're getting the same old results. So by mixing it up, maybe it's not an alligator. You got to know your audience, but maybe it's maybe what I showed, a knight or something. That's not too cheesy. That's maybe a step up from an animal figure. You got to find what works for you, but A/B test it, and I'll tell you, don't think that the old way is going to produce new results. It just doesn't work like that. Now, Greg says here, I like Greg's comment because he says, look, sometimes you can just say this is my last email. Are you going to respond?
Yep.
And sometimes that's a great way to get it. So you got a couple different options there, and I think that is a fair point of watching your line. So,
and it made it into the deck, but it's the Hail Mary. It's the all right. We're end of the fourth quarter here. Got to go for something. Here's the Hail Mary. You go with the challenge, or you go with the humor. And again, if you did your research earlier on, you'll know if the person's going to be responsive to something like that or not, or if they're going to think it's immature. I don't think the alligator one is immature. I think it's fun and it's a little bit different, but some people might, and that's fine. You just need to know who you're talking to, know your audience.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so let's wrap this up. Last section here quickly. You move towards the bottom of the funnel. When it comes to phone conversations, there's a couple things most people are thinking about. They're thinking about cold calling, and then they're thinking about it's not what you say, it's how you say it. I love what Trish Bertuzzi said about cold calling. You guys, it's not that cold calling is dead. It's that the cold of calling is dead. So with some of the stuff that Max has talked to you about today, you're not calling cold anymore, but the phone is the more aggressive tool, and you're going to have to use it probably to close a deal. A lot of reps nowadays, I think, are relying too heavily on email, and we got to find that balance. And I think there's some great best practices. I mean, Inside Sales has produced some. I'm just flashing this on, optimizing your cold calling, how many times you should call, when you should call, how fast you should call. So I think there's a lot of top-of-funnel best practices you can do and utilize with tools such as the InsideSales.com platform. However, when you move further down the funnel, I think people are still struggling, Max, in that concept of, it's maybe not what you say, but it's how you say it. Can you just double-click on that for a minute? Max, did I lose you?
So, I see you asked me to double-click, and I was like, what am I clicking on here? Okay. It's not how you say it. I mean, confused on the lingo.
Figuratively speaking.
Okay, cool. So, it's not how you say it. It's not what you say, but how you say it is a big piece of getting on the phone. So, it's the first part is it's in the words you're using. So, for example, like I used before, in email, dumb it down. Don't use the word utilize. Use the word use. Make it simpler for people. But over the phone, it's actually like the meanings of the words. And so when you're having a conversation with someone and maybe you're talking about closing the deal and you use, think about the word contract. Like, it's when you hear contract, you're like, okay, legally binding. I'm signing a contract. I'm signing my life away. There's lawyers involved. When you hear the word agreement, you hear about kind of two friends agreeing on something. So maybe you change the wording around when you say, okay, I'm going to send the contract over, or I'm going to send the agreement over. There's, another example is control and responsibility. If you tell somebody that they have more responsibility, they might feel it's daunting, or that, there's weight on their shoulders, and, they don't need more responsibility. They already have 2 kids and a team of 20 that they have to, be responsible for. But if you tell them they have more control, then they hear, okay, I'm in control. I have the keys to the car. Like, I can do what I want. It's freedom. And so in a lot of different contexts, especially in sales, those things can mean the same thing in that context. But it's just understanding what words you're using. So if you're calling from a script, or if you're used to having the same conversation over and over again, go back and think about what words you're using in those conversations. And a lot of different things can cause different reactions. And so, there's a lot of natural language processing software out there now that's helping with this type of stuff, really understanding like how people are reacting to what reps are saying. But you can do this, standard practice right now, just going through your script or going through what your normal, routine is. So the second part of that is not the words, but how you say things. So using like inflection in your tone. If you leave somebody a voicemail and it's like a monotone, boring voicemail, what do you think the odds are that they're going to call you back? Probably low. But if you're excited and you're passionate and you're bringing them into it, and your voice is basically saying, okay, this is like a really interesting opportunity, it almost doesn't even matter what you're saying, because people are sold on you. You're being charismatic. And so when you're getting on the phone, what you're saying to people is up to you. That's your pitch. But how you say it, you should really take a step back and think about it. I'd say, the number one thing on here is people buy from people. So you're selling to the individual first, then the employee, then the company. So again, Farland Dowell, who's the VP of Sales over at Rainforest QA, had said this at one of our events a while ago. Become a hero maker. So when you sell something to someone at a company, you want them to think that they're going to become a hero for their company, because it's going to do so well that they're going to get a promotion. So that's the employee part. The company's going to make a lot of money, and that's the company part. And that they are the hero. Their ego is basically getting stroked. They are everybody loves them. They're the champion, whatever. So first you're selling to the individual, then the employee, then the company. And last of all, people buy from people.
Perfect. Well, Max, I appreciate it. We're running out of time here. Sounds like we could go on forever. Maybe you and I will have to sit down sometime and continue the banter. Let's finish it up here, guys. A couple of kind of house cleaning items, and then a little bit of Q&A. You will get this email recorded link here, ideally by tomorrow. There is information that you can download here on the side. So grab a couple of those pieces of content. You got a couple from me, a couple from Max, and then Max, you could probably talk better about this than I can, but a killer conference coming up here, the Sales Stack 2015 conference. Max, maybe give the 10-second overview there.
Yeah, we got about 1,000 people coming, salespeople coming together for that. Mainly decision makers, inside sales, sales ops, demand gen, sales development roles, and it's going to be awesome. San Francisco, November 10th, all about B2B sales, sales technology, and some real actionable tactical content with about a 50-person vendor area, all about buying sales technology software to kind of make your teams more efficient and more effective.
Love it. So, guys, our time for questions is going to be basically minimal to none, but I'll promise you this. If you do type a question for us, Max, myself, and the gang will make sure we follow up and answer some of those. We had a great question from Sean about recommendations on social selling. I'm a big fan of Jamie Shanks and Sales for Life. David's got a good question out there about, social and, executives over 50 and what's going on there. So please do type something in, and we'll follow up and answer. I felt like we did answer a number of questions during the session, so because of our time, we'll cut that short. Our last ask is definitely going to be, do grab Max and I on LinkedIn. Grab us on Twitter. We want to chat. We want to keep the conversation going. So really appreciate it, Max, your time, your expertise. Best of luck at your conference. And thanks, everybody, for joining, and have a great day.
Thank you, Gabe.